At this point, you may be asking yourself, why am I holding this 30-pound cinder block in my hands? You might also ask yourself, why does this cinder block have a long piece of string tied to it? And finally, why is the other end of this string tied securely to your penis?
Welcome back to another episode of Front Row Cinema, a movie podcast for movie lovers by movie lovers. I am your host, TJ Trimboli, and with me, as always, my co-host, we've got the owner of 6 speaker cities in the house tonight, Mr. James O'Reilly.
That's a net worth of $3.5 million. Thank you very much.
My God. Absolutely wonderful, sir. Thank you to be here with us tonight. And each week we take a look at my 1,000 movies I've seen in theaters and we see how well it's aged, along with the hype surrounding the film, its box office analysis, and legacy in the film industry. So if you enjoy this kind of content, hit that sub button on YouTube, leave that 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's how you help the channel grow. Jim, what are we watching tonight?
We're watching Old School.
That's right, the 2003 comedy classic. Old School, directed by Todd Phillips, with a script from him and Scott Armstrong, and starring Luke Wilson, Vince Vaughn, and Will Ferrell. Vince Vaughn is the owner of 6 speaker cities. Definitely went bankrupt by this time, right? Like, is there much use for speaker cities in this modern age here?
Yeah, I don't know. I would bet you that Vince Vaughn would pivot to like selling cell phones or something like that.
I could see that. He seems like a hustler, that he would always find whatever is on the next cutting edge of technology to keep himself one step ahead of the game. Kudos to you, Mr. Speaker City. Now, Jim, we pull out our lovely DVD cover here, as always. Interestingly enough, not a lot of headlines from any critics or anything on this one. There's only one singular blurb, and it is from Gannett Newspapers, calling the movie rude, raucous, and outrageous.
What was it called?
Gannett Newspapers.
Gannett?
Yeah, Gannett.
Gannett.
What local affiliate could they possibly be from?
Yeah, Gannett's got to be like a town name, right?
Right? You would think it's got to be like some small town like newspaper. Like,
Maybe it's not.
they're not from the big times. Are you looking it up right now?
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. They're owned by Fortress Investment Group.
Who the fuck is that?
Yeah. And it is the largest U.S. newspaper publisher as measured by total daily circulation.
What?
This seems fishy, dude. I've
Yeah,
never
right?
even heard of this.
Never even heard of it. You're telling me they're the largest paper
You're
in
telling me this
circulation?
it's out like USA Today? Come on, no way.
All the top ones you can name, like the New York Times, like the Post. They're like, no, baby. Gannett newspaper.
It looks like it's located in New York.
I'm gonna have to make a trip to the home office. Day trip into the city.
Oh wait, hold on. It owns the national newspaper USA Today.
Okay, there we
right,
go.
now we're talking.
All right,
Okay,
now we're
yeah.
talking. That's making more sense.
I'm like USA Today has to be the most popular paper, and then yeah, it is. Okay, cool.
Here we go. All right, the
They
world.
also own the Detroit Free Press, the Indianapolis Star, the Cincinnati Enquirer, the Columbus
right.
Dispatch, the Florida Times Union.
Oh boy! All right, the world is making sense again. It's all.
Yeah,
The puzzle pieces are fitting together.
This is like literally like every major paper in all of those cities that we just went down. Like,
Man, at that point, yeah, they got all the big boys, so now they're scooping up their third-rate papers. They're getting their Gannett's,
yeah,
getting their
yeah.
Toledos.
Gannett is like the parent company. So what did they just like order like a edict to all these papers that Old School is rude, raucous, and
I
like,
guess they're the go-to ones. They're like, listen, Old School, not good enough for our New York Times. That's classy stuff. Like, give it to somebody that can do something rude and raucous, like Gannett. They love outrageous stuff.
yeah, I guess. I don't know. That's very funny though. And that's the only blurb on there?
Only blurb. Goes
Any
to Connect.
uh
Goes.
any Oscar buzz on there? What's going on with that?
No Oscar buzz or nothing on here. Although you
No
would
way.
imagine if a new one came out, it would have to be like from Academy Award winning director. Well, no, he didn't win the direct. He didn't win for directing, but his movie won. Right? Only Joaquin Phoenix won for Joker. They didn't win anything else.
Um, yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, I think only Joaquin won for that movie. But still insane that we've got Todd Phillips, creator of such classics like Road
No,
Trip and
hold
Out
on,
in
hold
the
on. Todd
okay.
Phillips is gonna come up later. I
Oh,
wouldn't bring him up now.
all right.
His
So
filmography is too perfect for this
we'll
game.
we'll
It's
save we'll
short, sweet, and chock full of good stuff.
chock full of good hits to come. But everyone knows now who the man Todd Phillips is from his humble beginnings. But we turn our attention to our log line here, Jim, and it reads. What's a guy supposed to do when he catches the early flight home and finds his girlfriend in bed with a room full of naked strangers? Return to college and start a fraternity. Before you can say wild and wet wrestling, Frank the Tank, Mitch, and Beanie have their own frat raging with out of control antics. But when things get too wild, the dean sets out to shut them down. The laughs are top of the class, even if the guys aren't.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that the blurb hits what's maybe one of my favorite parts about this movie is that they're all kind of awful.
That's so funny. The top of the class, even if the guys aren't.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely silly. Jim, did you see this movie in theaters?
No, I did not. But this would have been like a home video movie because my older brothers were big fans of it, so I probably didn't actually see it. But then when it came out, I'm sure we watched it a bunch.
Yeah, and then I mean, we watched this movie all the time. I feel like when we were in high school, this was one of those movies that we would bust out quotes for randomly anytime we'd be doing anything with people.
Yeah, it's a really quotable movie. That's why.
Absolutely. I remember this was a movie that my dad took me, my brother to, and then we went with a family friend who also brought her two kids. So it was the six of us in there. And we just fuck I just remember crying laughing watching this movie. And it's so insane that like my I love that my parents took us to movies like this because this is what we're still 2003, so I'm like 13, like we're just about to graduate middle school, like this
Right.
is still a pretty like adult movie to be taking your 13-year-old to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm so happy he did because I will never ever forget. I still think to this day the hardest I've ever laughed in a movie experience ever is when Will Ferrell shoots himself in the neck. It's
Yeah,
still to this day the hardest I've ever laughed in a movie theater, and I'll
it's pretty
never
great.
forget.
It's pretty
Yeah.
great. Yeah, it's I mean it's pretty iconic, right? Because this, I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but like this movie, this feels like a kind of beginning of the episode thing. This movie feels like it kind of sets a standard for R-rated comedies going forward for me, right? Like,
Like this is really like, and we'll dive deeper into it once we get into the actual movie. But this really does feel like the kicking off point for that next generation of comedy that would become so prevalent in our generation, like our Judd Apatow comedies, like Wedding Crashers, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, all those types of movies. Like this is the movie that really feels like it kicks off that type of R-rated comedy that
yeah,
became
and
so prevalent in the 2000s.
The Hangover, by the way, you can't forget The Hangover.
Right. Yes. The Hangover
I know
too.
that's probably not our favorite version of this movie,
Yeah.
but it's definitely in that same ballpark as the other
Oh yeah,
version.
definitely. And that one was probably like one of the like most successful versions of this too, even if it's not like one of
It's
our
the only one
favorites.
they made three of.
That is, yeah, that is true. That is very, very true. And it's a shame that some of these other ones didn't get sequels to them because the box office returns on some of these comedies were always all over the place. And being the kicking off point for this kind of new generation of comedy was definitely not without its risks. So let's take a look in there, Jim. Let's dive into those box office numbers.
Numbers, dates, and numbers, numbers, dates, array, dates, numbers. Show me the money.
All right, so I want to start with a couple of things here
Mm.
on the box office mojo. Runtime 1 hour 28 minutes. Double thumbs up.
Yeah, right
Just
there. Yeah, right off the bat, beauty. That's a beauty right there.
genius. Part of the reason why this movie only costs you $24 million to make.
Good budget.
Yeah, right. Like it's
Well, also like they
definitely
probably were
made
able.
the it, if you're trying to make an R-rated comedy, much like Kangaroo Jack was, old school definitely went the better route.
Yeah, and they probably saved a lot of money too by like there's it's crazy that like obviously now all these people are huge stars. But back then, like probably the biggest one was Vince Vaughn, who had been in like Swingers and like the Psycho remake and stuff like that. Like Will Ferrell is an unknown commodity when it comes to movies. He's really only been on Saturday Night Live at this point, and then some like Saturday Night Live movies. And Luke Wilson has not really been in like a lot of huge movies either. I think like at this point, like what Royal Tenenbaums has been out, like Bottle Rocket. So
Right.
like you're really probably saving a lot of money with all the talent that you're putting in this movie.
Well, yeah, and like you're probably spending most of that 24 million on that like ensemble, but it's like you're saying they're not super expensive yet and they can carry this kind of movie, which I mean, I can't imagine it was expensive to actually shoot, you know? There's nothing really like too fancy going on, right?
There's really like nothing. Like all you really need is just some houses to shoot in. Like there's really nothing. I think the thing that probably cost you the most was doing maybe the first party scene. Or actually,
Yeah.
no, there is some tomfoolery trickery later, like when they do
I
like
mean,
some of
that's
the
definitely just
gymnastic
the
stuff.
set, right? Like the
Yeah,
the party scene.
yeah, but maybe like getting all the extras to do that, like that takes a lot of people that you're like having to use for like a long period of time doing a night shoot. Like that probably adds up a little bit, I would imagine. But again, like
Yeah,
nothing
that's fair.
nothing that's like outrageous. Like,
Right. But so either way, they make this movie for $24 million, which for an R-rated comedy, you're
gold.
at a good starting point there.
Yeah, that's gold. Looking at you, Kangaroo Jack. How did Kangaroo Jack cost 60?
Yeah, right. Isn't that's really why I've spent so much time on that, is because like compare that to Kangaroo Jack, which started out trying to make an R-rated comedy and ended up spending $60 million on God knows what.
Amazing.
So Old School opens the weekend of February 21st through February 23rd of 2003. It opens in second place with 17.45 million.
17. Still on the low end, but for like an R-rated comedy that like especially has a lot of like no-name talent, like that's not terrible. Like you'll make your budget back off of that. So 17.4 is good enough to slot us in at the number 30 position now, just behind a Just Married 17.5, but ahead of Spy Kids 2's 16.7.
Nice. So yeah, I mean it's a low total compared to everything else we've done, but again, they made this movie for $24 million. They got to be very happy with 17.45, I would think.
Like you're gonna make your money back at this point. Like you know you're
Yeah,
gonna be
and
good.
it's also like I don't know how critics felt about it. I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit, but like you got to think there's like good word of mouth for this movie for the demographic it was going for, right? So like at
Oh
this
yeah,
point you open
absolutely.
strong and it's like the kind of movie people will see multiple times like so it opens in second that weekend. It comes in behind Daredevil, who is in its second
Ah,
with 18.1 million.
dude, the fact that it was like pretty close there to beat a superhero movie like in its second week goes to show how badly Daredevil fumbled the ball.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, to be fair, this was 2003. Superhero movies weren't necessarily superhero movies yet. Like Spider-Man had done it pretty successfully, but that it's like still kind of standing on its own at this point as like a tentpole kind of superhero thing.
Yeah, because there's really only at this point a few superhero movies that are getting it right. Like they're still like haven't perfected that formula where like they're making like knocking it out of the park with like every movie
Yeah.
that's coming out in a year.
I mean, we've been looking at basically every week in the box office since Spider-Man came out, right? So, I mean, can you think of any ones we've come across that are even close to that are superhero movies? Like, I think it's
Oh,
like the only one at this point.
yeah.
And I'm not going to go over the rest of this week too much because we've covered it a lot in other
Yeah.
episodes. Like
Yeah.
Chicago's still in here, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is still in here, Shanghai Nights is still around. Um, Weekend 2, Old School is going to come in with a 19.6% drop.
Okay.
Second weekend, it's going to pull in 14 million.
Yeah, see, like so already right there, you passed your
Right,
budget.
you're already profiting, and like we talk about this all the time too, right? Where home video is still huge at this
Huge.
point.
Yeah, like
This
this
is the
movie.
kind of movie that's going to crush in home video sales. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? Like
and like that,
everybody's buying this.
and they're also like one of the first ones I feel like that taps into that unrated market where they're like, hey, we've got this R-rated comedy. When we release the home video version, let's release an unrated version. So now it's like there's more incentive where it's like, oh, now you're getting stuff that like we couldn't put in for the R-rated version. So like I'm sure that helped like drive sales also.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like almost crazy to think about this because of how different it is with streaming now. But it's kind of like home video is kind of like the heaven that syndication was for TV shows, I feel like, where the reason you're just throwing old school at the wall for like $24 million is because you know if it's really funny, you're gonna get to that endpoint where you're probably gonna like double at least what you made. Like you're probably gonna make your box office over again, you know, at least. So I don't know. It's just like it's really interesting to think about, like how it's successful, but like I really wish we could look up the DVD numbers,
I wish they were more readily available, like information.
but yeah, like this is like a smash hit for them at this point, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because they
But yeah,
know there's so
absolutely.
much waiting for them on the back end. Weekend 3, Old School's gonna come in third place with 9.2 million. This is we've talked about this week too. This is Bringing Down the House open number one, the Queen
Ooh,
Latifah and Steve Martin movie, I believe.
yeah, definitely not the same type of comedy.
Yeah, definitely not. And I mean, like Chicago's still in here. How to Lose the Guy in 10 Days. So we'll keep on rolling. Um, Weekend 4, Old School's gonna drop 27.4% down to 6.7 million. It's gonna be in sixth place.
Uh,
Uh, Notable openings this week. Coming in second, Agent Cody Banks with 14.1 million.
Christ.
And then I don't know what this movie is in third, The Hunted with 13.5. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Well, it's Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro. It's like a survival movie.
Oh, okay. It sounds like I kind of want to watch it now that you
It
mentioned
I
it.
won't I only watched it once, like way back when. I
I
remember it
still don't
being
think I've seen
solid.
it. It doesn't ring any bells. And then all right, let's just ride Old School out of the top 10. Weekend 5, it drops 41.5% down to 3.9 million. It's in ninth place.
They get one more.
It just beats out the opening weekend of Boat Trip, by the way.
Oh boy, another movie that
Another
we
R-rated
used
comedy,
to.
which
Yeah,
swerves in a very different direction and is not nearly as successful.
it's another movie we used to quote all the time when we were
Yeah, I
kids.
mean,
Dude,
don't get me
that's
wrong. I enjoyed that movie as a teenager. I would be very suspicious of if it holds up.
oh,
But
no, yeah, that's one of the ones that I'm saying like Old School holds up. Boat Trip, don't think that one would hold up.
yeah, and then finally, weekend 6, Old School drops 38.2% down to 2.4 million, coming in 12th place.
Ah, still 5 weeks, solid. It's joining the average of a plethora of 5 week movies. We won't name them all, but movies like Scary Movie, Jurassic Park 3, and lovely Kangaroo Jack.
The only movie that it's not as successful as, I'd say, is Scary Movie. Out of the list you just gave,
I don't
Scary
know.
Movie was a pretty big hit for them too.
That's true.
So just finishing up with some totals.
Okay.
Um, domestic 75.6 million, international 11.6 million for a worldwide total of 87.1, 87.2 ish.
All right, 87.1, good enough to put it in the 36th spot behind last week's movie, Shanghai Nights, which pulled in 88.3, and ahead of Enough, which did 51.8. So it's been a minute since we've seen a big, huge earner here, Jim. We're definitely in the low stakes movies right now in this lovely
Yeah.
winter of 2003.
I'm interested though. Have we done any other R-rated comedies?
Well, Scary Movie, definitely.
Yeah, okay. That
Super
finishes like way ahead of this, right?
Yeah, Scary Movie finished where is so scary yeah, Scary Movie was a monster hit. Scary Movie finished with 278 million worldwide.
Right. So old school's not quite that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most successful R-rated comedy that we've done so far because the only other one that comes to mind is Super Troopers, and that only pulled in 23 million.
Right. And that was against like a much smaller budget,
Yeah,
right?
that was against like a $1 million budget, but still
Right.
not like a huge hit like we'll eventually start to see comedies do in the 2000s, like you mentioned movies like The Hangover, which ends up doing like huge business.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like the three that we've done feel like they fit into pretty unique boxes for each other. Like Scary Movie's more of what I would think of like a big budget, like studio kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like not big budget how you would think of like a superhero movie, right? But like it's like costing more than old school did, I would bet.
Yeah, like
And
it
then
definitely
old school's
feels like
kind of that like
more.
middle budget, like it's happy pulling in 87 million worldwide. And then Super Troopers is like the micro budget. Like it's just
Yeah.
interesting that they've like fit into those different areas.
It's funny how like they're all technically the R-rated comedy, but they're all very unique in how they approach the R-rated comedy. It's like that's
Yeah.
super interesting too.
Yeah, like would you say this movie is stupider than Scary Movie? No, right?
No, not at all.
Like this movie is pretty stupid, but it's not nearly as stupid as Scary Movie.
Yeah, no, Scary Movie definitely, I think the dumbest out of the three of those. And I don't mean that in a bad sense. It's just it's definitely probably the one that feels like it has the most childish humor that dates out of the three of them that we've done so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but for this one, kind of falls in line with a lot of the other already comedies that are coming out. Comedy is always the toughest genre, I feel like, when it comes to audience reception because comedy is the most unique to the person. Like comedy is a really tough cookie because not every person's always going to think the same things are funny. So it's easy to date itself. It's easy to like struggle to make certain people laugh. Like everyone's humor is different.
Yeah.
But this one does pretty solid. Like for at least for what you would think from critics, like it's 60% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics
Okay.
versus
Does that count as certified fresh? I
no,
don't
I
know,
think
honestly.
I think 60% still rotten.
Oh no.
I think hold on, let's see now. Now I need to know. What is the threshold
Yeah, you
for
gotta tell me if it's certified fresh or not.
for the
That's like
for the thermometer?
the thermometer. That's that's so stupid that that's what it's called.
All right, yeah, so 60% is fresh. That is a fresh thermometer. And then audience score was an 86%. So audience is definitely digging on this. Sits with a 7.0 on IMDb. But somehow I guess the people going to see it, Cinema Score throws us a curveball this week, a B plus. Kangaroo
Oh
Jack got
wow.
an A minus, but a B plus for old school.
Yeah. It's very cinema score is really hard to pin down, man. I don't quite get it. It doesn't.
Every
It
time I think
feels
I
a
got a
lot
beat on
like
it.
what we're doing, where we're just like just throwing a number on something whenever we feel like it, and like hopefully none of it makes any sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm about through trying to understand my cinema score here because it's always all over the place. Just when I think I get a beat on it, it throws the rule book out the window,
Yeah,
slaps
but I
me over
get
the face with
maybe
it.
maybe it's because of what you were saying though. Like comedy is like more subjective, so like it's when you go see Kangaroo Jack with your kids, it's like you expect it to be silly and stupid, and kids will like anything.
Yeah, that is true. And yeah, comedy is definitely the hardest sell with how, subjective its comedy is because you get all different people. Like you see it all the time with stand-up comedians, like where you get hecklers where you're like someone will make a joke and a heckler will be like, "That's not funny." So it's like it's probably the same thing going to see a movie. It's like you can go with five people, four of them will laugh hysterically, and one was like, "That was really offensive."
Yeah, exactly.
So definitely the hardest sell. I don't think we're gonna have that problem here with you or me though, because we both tend to have similar humor for the most part. We both usually think the same things are funny. So I'm interested to see your thoughts on this bad boy, Jim. What worked for you? What didn't work this time around for old school?
I mean, it mostly holds up, which is cool. It like I think I mentioned it earlier, the runtime is perfect, you know? It doesn't really ever try to be anything more than it is, which is nice. And
It
like
doesn't
you
outstay
brought it
its
up a little bit
welcome.
earlier too, where it's a lot of people who go on to become like pretty big comedy movie stars, but before they're really big comedy movie stars. So like it's like almost this kind of toned down version of Will Ferrell because eventually Will Ferrell kind of becomes a parody of himself, and like I'm not even saying that's a bad thing, like it's probably
Yeah,
even funnier when he's a parody of himself. But
because
like
like you,
in this movie he's still kind of grounded. Like you see all the same like flair and all the same like identity to it, but it's still like he feels still kind of human in a way, whereas like in Anchorman he's just like a total ridiculous person, right?
like you could tell like he's like maybe like finding his footing like now in like this movie world that he's like stepping into because he does feel
Yeah.
like so like calm even though he is wild and Frank the Tank like he does feel like way calmer than when you start to see him crop up and stuff later like you said in Anchorman he's an absolute
Yeah,
buffoon
I mean even
in
in like
Wedding
Kicking and
Crashers he's so
Screaming
over the top. Yeah,
kicking and screaming, he's a lunatic, you know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
kicking
Like
and screaming, yeah, he's a
he's
lunatic.
not even close to a real person in that movie. In
Yeah,
this
he's
movie he's kind of just like a dumb frat boy, you know?
Yeah, so he definitely feels so, something that I didn't realize. I love when we do movies like this, especially ones that we used to watch a lot when we were in high school, and now we're returning to them now, because
Yeah.
now that we're 35 and we have a bit more understanding and wisdom behind these old bones. I pick
Yeah.
up on so many things in movies now that I didn't even think about when we watch these movies for the first time. And in old school, it I don't think I would ever have picked up on it until I got to the age where like I'm already married and like in a relationship, like and seeing this where like there's this whole subtext under this movie of just like the mundanity of like dudes feeling like they're stripping away a portion of themselves like when they get married.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's
So I would say like, and this is like a pretty dramatic way to talk about old school. So give me a break for a second because I'm gonna do it anyway.
I think you're about to say the
Um,
same thing that I'm thinking in my head, so I'm ready for it.
yeah, it's like it feels like a movie like where it's like this is how Todd Phillips is maybe expressing how he feels about like getting older. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like kind of like a wish fulfillment kind of thing for the person in that stage of their life, you know? Like where wouldn't it
absolutely.
be so cool if I could go start like a frat right now?
Or like get back some of that like youth that I feel because like you see it a lot like especially with guys where it feels like you're getting older but then you wonder if you're getting wiser like you still have that like young wolf mentality like in your head you always still feel like you're young or want to like feel like you're young and like be out there and like be testosterone filled. And this is a funny movie where it's like kind of these dudes like coming to terms with this idea that like just because I have to settle down or do these things, does that mean like I have to lose a part of myself, of my youth that was there?
Well,
Because
yeah, and
you see it in Will Ferrell as he immediately gets married and like can't like rationalize the fact that like he was like this wild man with the fact that like now he's supposed to be like this guy where like they have the great line where he's like no like we're running a lot of errands tomorrow like we're going to Home Depot like we're gonna hit Bed Bath and Beyond. I don't know if we're gonna have enough time like
yeah, yeah. And their reactions to him saying it is so good. Like the first couple, they're like, "What the fuck did he just say?"
yeah.
And then like on the third one, they think he's just joking around, and then he agrees to do the thing.
It's like such a like a funny thing that I never picked up on when we used to watch this. Like probably seen this movie like 20 something times that we watched as a kid, and this is the first time I ever watched it like now, where I was like, oh shit, like there's that whole like little portion of that underneath it of like these dudes like pretty much just like coming to terms or like grasping with this like identity crisis of like the two halves of like themselves at this point. Because like
Yeah, well,
you have Luke Wilson, who, you know, in the beginning is this like he thinks he's this happy guy in this structured relationship, finds out he's getting cheated on, has this horrible thing go through him. And then as he becomes like the godfather and he's saying to the girl at one point, he's like, I've never felt like this alive. Like, I feel like, you know, I feel like myself for the first time in like a long time, as he's like rediscovering like that portion of himself that like it kind of feels that like he tucked away when he had to like go into this like monogamous relationship.
yeah, I mean, yeah, to an extent, yeah, like I definitely see that. But it's interesting when you talk about Will Ferrell though, because his arc in this movie is kind of like learning that like you didn't need to settle down. You just did that because you think that's what you were supposed to do. You know what I mean? Like you didn't even necessarily want to do it. So it's just cool to see like where he gets to by the end of the movie, where he's like a radio DJ, I guess.
Yeah, it's like
Like
the
that
shock
kind of comes out of
DJ.
left field. But he's like a radio DJ, and then he meets the girl from the beginning at the
It's
grocery
like
store, and like the
putting it out. Yeah,
credits.
he's like, I'm to send it out to the Godfather. If it wasn't for you, probably wouldn't be here today.
Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, like he realizes by the end that he doesn't need to settle down. He can kind of like do his own thing and be his own person, and he doesn't need to attach himself to somebody if he doesn't want to. You know?
It's funny how they show like those three different sides of like, you know, marriage and a relationship between the three characters. Because yeah, because you even see it in Will Ferrell, where like you could tell that like he got married because it was like the thing to do at that point in his life. Because even when like you see them after they got married, and like you could tell like they still know like don't know so much stuff about each other.
Yep.
Like it
Yeah.
tells like from their
Well, this
conversations.
one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he's got the bandana on and he's like fixing his car.
He's fixing his hot rod. Dude, I die
Yeah.
every time he does the fake like, hey Mike, like to the guy
Yeah,
across the
yeah.
street that you
Hey,
never
Mike.
see.
Hold on, I got a clip from that part. It's so good.
Took the restrictor plate off, give the Red Dragon a little more juice.
So
Just like
good.
that scene is like a more ridiculous, like Will Ferrell dipping into the more ridiculous stuff, you know.
Yeah. It's so
But
funny
yeah,
to
no, you're right. Like she's never seen him do any of that shit, and like he's already like he's only doing it because he's freaking out about the fact that he's married. You know what I mean? Like, it's so good.
and you
And
could
then
tell like they're like we jumped too far into it because even when we played in our intro with him going on about oh no, we didn't play that in the intro.
yeah,
Okay,
we
take
didn't
that.
play the
Yeah, you're
therapy
right. You
one
didn't
in
play
the
that one.
intro. We played the
I'll
other
do
one.
I'll do that one.
But
I'll
no,
do
the
that one.
therapy scene is great too. Yeah, where he's like, I think that one is so amazing because they're like, you know, this is like the trust tree. Just say whatever's on your mind. It's like everything's safe here. And it's like, I didn't even need to know what he was going to say to know that that was a bad idea. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, there's no way if you actually said what you were thinking that it would go well. Like, there's no way.
And just the way he delivers lines is so good too. Because I love movies that like, because this is a movie where I think a lot of the humor ages very well because like the humor isn't based on like saying offensive things or like doing like certain things that might like age poorly as it goes on. Like a lot of the humor in this just comes from just the way you've created these characters.
Yeah,
So
it's
like you
based in like real characters. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So, and it makes that therapy scene so great because like we're putting Will Ferrell in here, who is this guy that realizes he's gotten in way over his head and now is like freaking out about it. So you get this just great scene where he's just like, you know, and we went to the Olive Garden, which was lovely. And it's like it's such a simple line that like just the way he delivers it, I'm just like, that's fucking great, man. Like I die every time he says that. Like we went to the Olive
But
Garden,
like
which was lovely.
which was lovely. And that scene is so great too. Whoever plays his wife in this movie is so great in that scene. Because when he's talking about the Olive Garden stuff, she's like, "Yeah, it was pretty lovely." Like she's so into it, and she's like, "Wow, this is like going great, like therapy, man." And then when he says, "I just was just thinking about like what kind of underpants she has on," she does this like like slow turn to him, like, and as she's turning you can see like her face just like slumping into a frown as she's
Getting worse
processing
and
it.
worse.
It's so good.
So I thought maybe she was wearing a thong. Maybe it was something really cool that I don't even know about. Which is like
Yeah,
such a great line because it's like he already named the two things it could be. So the fact that he's like maybe it's something really cool I don't even know about.
yeah, and like that's what I think is so funny about this is because like I don't even think he's thinking it like a sexual thought. You know what I mean? Like it's partially that because then he gets into like he's just freaking out about how he's only gonna have sex with one person for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? But like the way he describes it just sounds like he was more like casually wondering than
Uh,
anything else. You know what I mean?
like he
And
would
it's
just
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 like,
popped into his head.
right, how do you explain that to your fucking wife? You know, like it's just there's no way.
It's so
So that scene's great, and I mean, yeah,
it's
like
amazing.
they're like he's very the thing about all the characters in this movie, I think maybe except Luke Wilson, but maybe a little bit Luke Wilson too. Like they're very relatable, you know.
Oh
Like
yeah.
even Vince Vaughn is like a bad dude through a lot of the movie, although they do give him that like really good redemption toward the end when he like refuses to cheat on his wife, you know, even though he kind of already did. Like
Like yeah, you like you did let her kiss you, bro. Like
yeah, he kind of already did. But he did stop, which is cool. Like, he could have not stopped, which would have been even worse. But no, like, he's not a good guy. But, like, there's stuff that he's saying that's, like, very relatable. Like, a lot of the times he's making a lot of sense, you know? Like,
well, dude, he's far and away my favorite character in this movie. I like I he plays it to such great degree in Wedding Crashers, but you could see how good he does it here too, where he just plays this like volatile like human tornado of like just word like salad that he's throwing at you. Like
yeah, yeah. And I
he's
mean, he's kind of the same way in Swingers, too, by the way.
he's just this like loudmouth in your face guy that just like feels like he always starts at a 75. Like he's so unhinged throughout
Yeah,
this
but
entire movie. It's so good.
it's like this is kind of his like superpower, I think, where like he is always at a 75, but he does such a good job of like I understand he's at a 75 and like I know why he's at a 75 because the way he plays it is like he just like is like 10 steps ahead of you and he doesn't have time to explain it all. Like, you know what I
All
mean?
right. Like he's
And like
got
in
this
this
right from the
movie,
get-go.
yeah, in this movie it works so well because he's right that Will Ferrell shouldn't have married that lady. Like he was 100% right that was a bad idea, and he was like, "Dude, you can still stop. You don't have to do it. Like you can still stop."
And he was
And he
totally
was
right.
right that Luke Wilson needed to like open up a little bit, you know, like loosen
Yes.
up a little bit.
He's so great. And I just love that like the ways they paint him to show that like he's still like a good dad. Cause like even though he's doing all this stuff, he's always got his son there with him. Like it's so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and the earmuffs thing is so great. The way he like play, like the way he
He plays it up is so
the
good.
way he gets on them for saying things without saying
The earmuffs.
earmuffs before it
I
is
don't
like
know why you got to do
so
that.
amazing.
I don't know why you got to do that in front of the boy.
You just say
Yeah,
earmuffs.
all you do is say earmuffs, and then look, you say fuck shit. Will's like cock balls. He's like, I'm just making a statement, Frank. You don't have to take it to the fucking town.
Yeah. And then he like this is like such a small thing, but it's like maybe one of the funniest lines in the movie. As he's walking out of the kitchen, he's like, Uncle Mitch is sorry." He's like
Yeah.
talking to the kid like to calm the kid down.
He's like, he didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. And the kid's
Yeah,
showing
he's
like
like,
zero emotion too.
right, the kid didn't care at all. He doesn't even know what they're saying. It's so funny.
It's like, Uncle Mitch is sorry. He apologized.
He's sorry. Uncle Mitch is sorry.
It's yeah. It's so funny. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I
And
I
then I mean
love
Jeremy Piven's great in this movie. This is like when Jeremy Piven was like playing a lot of these like smaller
douchebag.
roles in movies and like killing it.
Yeah, he's so great. I love his introduction too. When like Vince Vaughn realizes he's like, oh yeah, cheese. Didn't we throw you in a dumpster once? And he's like, I got out. And Vince Vaughn's like, oh cool, man.
Yeah. But no, Jeremy Piven's great. Um I like I don't I'm not it's more of a that guy that like pops up in comedies, but the guy at the diner at the end, I think is like Brian Callen. He's like a comedian who is like honestly, I don't think he's that funny, but he's like a that guy in this.
Dude, there's a lot of like people that go on to do a lot. Like Jack Bauer's daughter is in it. Like,
Yeah. Well, dude, she was really like popular around this time. Wasn't she in that movie Girl Next Door pretty
so
soon
that
after this?
yeah, that I think is the following year is The Girl Next Door. And I think I think they're on like what, season 2 or 3 of 24 at this point.
Yeah. She's
Um,
like a big she's like the teen heartthrob at this
she's
point.
huge.
Although
Also,
maybe it's
dude, fucking John Locke being in this movie.
yeah, what of that guy, right?
Yeah, dude, when fucking John Locke showed up, I was like, dude, no fucking way, dude. He's
I'm
like,
trying
I
to
got
think.
those papers done yesterday, so now I got them working on the arbitration with me, and I'd appreciate it if you weren't on my ass every 5 seconds.
Yeah, and he's like, "All right, just make
Like,
sure you're on top of
make
it."
sure you're on top of it. Like it's so
There's
good.
somebody else in this though that I'm not thinking of. Oh,
Well,
another that guy, and I think this is maybe a very specific type of that guy,
mhm.
where I only know them by the name of their sitcom character.
Oh, here we go.
Wallowitz from Big Bang Theory is one of the frat
Oh yeah,
boys.
yeah, it's one of the guys. There's a few of them that are so in that group of guys. Yeah, you got the guy from the Big Bang Theory. Rob Corddry is one of them also.
Yep.
You see
Yeah.
him in the background, and
He
then
definitely gets more popular after those too,
yeah,
like
and then
later on in the future.
he never says a word. You see him really. The best time you really see him is he plays the guitar during Blue's wedding. But the dude who's playing the guitar that's in the group is from Suits. He's the main dude in
I
Suits.
Dude, I thought so. I saw him in the scene when they were doing the trust drop with the cinder blocks
Yeah.
that we played in the intro. I saw him and I'm like, dude, was that the guy from Suits? And then I couldn't find him anywhere though. Like he wasn't credited.
Dude, it's so crazy. And then of course, like you get people like the chick from the King of Queens is Vince Vaughn's
Yeah, Leah
wife.
Remini
Yeah,
is Vince Vaughn's wife. Juliette
yeah,
Lewis
Juliette
plays
Lewis.
Luke Wilson's girlfriend.
Yeah. And then
And then do
fucking
you know
Meredith Grey, baby.
yeah. Um the director also makes a cameo. Do you
Yeah.
know who he played in the movie?
Yeah, I'm here for the gangbang.
Yeah, I have it.
Hello. Yeah? I'm here for the gangbang.
Todd Phillips.
So
And of
it's
course, we can't miss Artie Lang, who
yeah,
plays
Artie
like the
Lang
guy
in
in The
there.
Office. Like,
Yeah, and also, I
uh,
mean,
John
I
William
mentioned it.
Scott as the animal trainer.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. That still to this day, that scene is the funniest scene. Like Sean William Scott when he comes in and he's like, "Yeah, I got one of those in case I gotta put one of these fuckers down," and then he just like tugs on the leash on it. He's like, "Yeah, fucker!" Like it's like, dude, is out of control. And he's like,
So
"What's that, man?" He's like, "That's an elephant trank dart, man. It's the toughest dart in the market." Shoots himself in the throat. And I love that the animal guy is like, his first instinct isn't to be worried or anything. He's just like, "Nice, yes, that's fucking awesome." And he's like, "What is?" He's like, "That you got a fucking dart in your neck."
he just took one right to the jugular.
So good. I've
Oh man.
never laughed harder than that scene. And when he just like Frankenstein walks and like just knocks over the cake and the birthday presents and then just falls into the pool.
Yeah, and then like he's having the hallucination, and he ends up kissing Sean William Scott, kicks him back in, and that might be like one of the best cuts, man, in any movie maybe when he gets kicked back in and he's just floating in the water again, and then it just cuts. Like it never shows you how it resolves at all. It's so good.
It's just gone. Yeah, this movie is just so fucking wild, and it cracks me up. There's so many parts, like I could just go on and on. I love the scene when they finally convince Luke Wilson that, like, come on, just like admit you want to do this. And they do the whole like we're gonna kidnap the pledges, and they just do it to Master of Puppets. They're just like hunting them
Yeah.
all down. And I love when they steal Rob Corddry or one of the other guys, and they tell the wife, like, "You tell anybody about this, I'll fucking kill you." And then he's like,
Yeah,
I'm kidding. We'll have him back
yeah. And
by
she's
dinner."
already freaking out. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so silly.
just steal their snacks.
They're chasing the one dude on campus, and they like crash into like a bulletin board, like take out the whole thing. Oh man, it's
So
so
yeah,
funny.
it's so good. It's so funny. And then like just the tests that they put the kids through is so good. It's
Oh yeah, the whole like Billy Madison academic decathlon at the end is so great.
Yeah. Oh, it's so fun. And it's one of those just like absolutely absurd premises. It's just like, yeah, we did our thing. They're gonna let us keep in, but we all have to prove like our academic like might to be allowed to stay. It's like
Yeah,
what?
it's ridiculous. I mean, the whole idea that they can just start a fraternity at all is ridiculous when they're not students at the
Yeah,
school.
so
Like, there's
insane.
no
Like, look
way
at that
that
guy.
could
That guy's
actually
like
happen,
90.
right?
No, yeah, there's no way. Yeah, oh, that's Blue. Yeah, his old geezer, old war vet's been hanging outside my door. They're like, he's gonna rush. Like, you kidding me? He won't shut up about it.
Yeah. Is Will Ferrell singing "Dust in the Wind" at Blue's funeral is another highlight.
That's a or even the wedding band that is doing the
Oh
every
yeah,
now
that's
and
like one
then
of
I
the
get
most iconic things ever when
they
he's
just start
dropping all the
dropping
F
the F
bombs into
bombs.
Bright Eyes.
Freaking the first time it happens and you see Will Ferrell and his wife do like the look to each other and they don't say a word, but like you could immediately tell the look is them looking at each other going, did they just say the F word? And they're like, no, like they couldn't have said the F word. And then they just start dancing again happily. And then it cuts
Yeah.
back to the band and he just drops another one. I'm like, dude, it's so good.
All right, so I got a question for you.
Okay.
Which singing scene do you take? Do you take the wedding singer from Old School, or do you take Michael Cera from Superbad?
Oh man. Those are both really good. Big Michael Sarah. I got to take the Michael
I'm taking
Sarah
Michael
one.
Cera too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think
yeah,
it's particularly close.
yeah.
But
That
the
one's
the
so
Old
good.
School one is definitely like an all-time great.
It's a great one because it
I
just comes out of
never
left field.
if I ever hear that song, I always sing along and I always put the
Do
F
that.
word in
Yeah,
there.
I
Like
always add the F
every
word now.
time.
Like that movie completely changed the lyrics to that song now. Like, and that's how iconic that was. But yeah, I love like that's what makes that joke so good is that like you just it comes out of left field. You're not expecting it. It doesn't do the
Yeah.
joke that you're
And
expecting.
the guy is really selling it too.
Yeah,
I don't know who he is, but he was crushing it, dude. He's so into it.
yeah, it's so great, and it's great that this lives up, to the comedy that's going to age well in the sense that like it has so much great quotable dialogue in it. Like you people all the time being like, "Blue, you're my boy, Blue," is like one that comes to mind. And even ones that aren't like become huge ones, like still one of my favorite lines in a movie ever is Luke Wilson's best man speech when he's like, "Love is hard to find. Sometimes you think you found love, and then you catch the early flight home from a real estate convention to find your wife getting gangbanged by a couple of circus freaks like it's a goddamn circus show."
Yeah.
And then Vince Vaughn just rips it from him. He's like, and it stops right there. And it continues right here. Well, I think he's saying that true love is blind.
Yeah. Which another Vince Vaughn, maybe not the best guy, but man, he knew what to do in that situation. He was Johnny on the spot.
Like, yeah,
He
he
didn't
always
leave his
knows that.
friend hanging, you know?
Just take charge of the situation. It's so good. It's like, Mitch, I own 6 speaker cities. Like, I know what I'm doing.
So, all right. So, is there anything you don't like about this movie?
Well, no, not really. I mean, there's nothing overt or that anything happens in this movie that like ruins it for me. This is just like a fun, classically hilarious comedy that still stands the test of time for me. What about you?
I mean, nah, like, not really. I can't think of anything really like too negative to say about it. I mean, it's just like, it's not really all that deep. At the end of the day, it's kind of like silly and stupid for the most part. But
Kind of like that's what I want out of my comedy. Like, I don't need it
yeah,
to
yeah,
be.
no, but it's still enjoyable for that. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't have anything really bad.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I could say, which would just be a nitpick, and it's not the worst thing because it happens in the credits, but that scene where like the douchebag that Meredith Grey was dating, when he's like
Oh, he
runs off the
drops the
road,
car on
yeah,
Jeremy
jumps the
Piven. That's
car and like
amazing, dude.
kills Jeremy Piven. It was like, yeah, sure,
That
whatever. But
honestly,
again,
I think I like that part a lot, honestly.
but that's just a nitpick. Nothing that overtly ruins this bad boy for me. So I guess we could turn the tables then, Jim, and I'm ready to dive into the illustrious career of our director, Todd Phillips.
So we'll get to Todd Phillips,
Ooh,
but I want to start somewhere a little deeper.
Oh boy. All right, dig deep. Where are we going?
Old School was nominated for 5 awards.
Oh boy.
Old School.
Here
So
we go.
it was a 2003 nominee for the Artios Award, Best Casting for Feature Film Comedy.
Yeah, sure, whatever that is.
But I really want to get to the highlight here. It was nominated for 2 MTV Movie Awards.
There you go, baby. That's the top spot.
So I think we covered a little bit of this. It was best on-screen team for Will Ferrell, Vince Vaughn, and Luke Wilson. They went up against the likes of Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson in Shanghai Nights. I'm pretty sure that's the episode we talked about this. The Jackass guys,
Okay.
the Surfer Chicks from Blue Crush, and then the
Oh,
eventual
boy.
winners, Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, and Kahlo. Which is still amazing that they didn't put Andy Serkis's name. Like, it's just mind blowing, honestly.
Dude, what
Um,
a collection.
and then it was nominated for Best Comedic Performance for Will Ferrell. And I know we didn't go through this category because nobody from Shanghai Nights was nominated for it.
Ooh.
So in this
Going
category,
streaking.
Adam Sandler got nominated for Mr. Deeds.
Okay.
Mike Myers got nominated for Austin Powers and Goldmember.
Okay.
Will Ferrell got nominated for Old School. Cedric the Entertainer got nominated for Barbershop. And Johnny Knoxville for Jackass the Movie.
My God.
Who are you taking for Best Comedic Performance, MTV Movie Awards 2003?
Man, out of those,
Yeah, who's your winner?
I would go with Will Ferrell. I think Frank the Tank is definitely the funniest out of all those performances.
Yeah, I think I might be biased because I can see who the winner actually was.
Who
And
is the
I'm kind
winner?
of leaning towards saying them, but Mike Myers won for Austin Powers and Goldmember.
That sounds about right. But
Right?
I feel like the third one out of the gate, like Powers probably won a previous one, right? Maybe some shine some love on some new people.
Yeah, maybe.
Really, he should have been
Um,
nominated for Cat in the Hat, not Goldmember.
yeah, which that's also in 2003, right?
Yeah,
And did you see that in theaters?
Cat in the Hat. You fucking know I did.
Oh boy, so that's coming up soon.
Bim, not only did I see Cat in the Hat in theaters, I saw it as part of a double feature: The Cat in the Hat and Return of the King.
Oh wow. Talk about a fucking Grand Canyon between movies.
No, the crazier
Uh,
thing is
so
that we saw Return of the King first.
oh man, dude, I can't even imagine. That was such a terrible idea.
Needed a palate cleanser after, so we, you just needed to go with the Cat in the Hat.
Yeah. All right, so moving on. It was also nominated for the 2004 Taurus Award for Best Fire Stunt.
What? Oh, for him jumping through the
Yeah.
fucking hoop, or lack thereof, jumping
Joe
through the hoop.
Vaccaro III was nominated for Best Fire Stunt for
Okay.
for Old School.
Amazing.
And it
So
went
keep
up
our
against
composure.
it went up against Douglas Chapman and Glenn Ennis for Freddy vs. Jason.
Jesus Christ.
Uh just Glenn Ennis from Freddy vs. Jason. So Freddy vs. Jason got nominated for
Lot
2 Best Fire Stunt awards.
that man put himself through hell for our entertainment. Gotta respect the
One
hustle.
was there was an explosion and they got caught on fire and ratcheted backwards into a lake.
Okay.
The other one
Yep.
was
That sounds about right.
Stuntman is lit on fire but continues to chase teenagers at a party. He makes his way through a cornfield, lighting the field on fire as he walks to the party to kill several teenagers with his fiery blade.
Jesus Christ.
Dude, I love how much effort they put
To
into
explaining
the
the stunt.
Taurus Awards on IMDb. This is fucking nuts.
That's so funny.
Like, how on earth is there 2 nominations for Freddy vs. Jason, and I can explain to you the difference between them?
With
This
them.
is like,
Amazing.
Also, 28 days later, when some zombies got hit by a Molotov cocktail. And then finally, the other nominee is The Last Samurai.
Nice.
Battlefield soldiers are set on fire by several explosions. The attackers erupt into multiple fire burns, and The Last Samurai is what eventually wins.
Nice. Right. Dude, fucking poor Jason had 2 chances to win, couldn't get his shot.
Yeah, for real. And then, last but not least, Old School is nominated in the Golden Schmoes Awards. Yeah.
What the
This is
fuck?
an IMDb deep dive, sir.
Dude, that is very deep.
It was nominated for Best Comedy of the Year, up against the likes of Bad Santa,
All right.
which honestly also kind of sets the tone for R-rated comedy. Like these two movies, I think coming out in the same year go a long way for the genre.
Absolutely.
Uh, Love Actually was nominated for Best Comedy of the Year.
It's not a comedy. Like,
It kind of is,
I
but
mean,
it's maybe not its like primary purpose. But they also went up against School of Rock,
oh boy.
and then Finding Nemo was the other nominee. So who are you picking
Why
for
would
Best
Finding
Comedy of
Nemo?
the Year out of that bunch?
Out of that bunch, probably Bad Santa.
I think I agree with you. I would put it between Bad Santa or School of Rock, but I think Bad Santa probably takes the cake.
What wins?
Finding Nemo. Which, I mean,
I
it
don't
depends on
know
what
if that's a
best
comedy either.
because Finding Nemo is funny and it is the best movie in this list, but is it the best comedy? I don't know. Like,
I don't know. Like, I wouldn't consider it a comedy. Like, there's comedic elements in it, and it's definitely very humorous. But like, I mean, I guess because like, isn't animation its own genre? Like,
um, I mean, not at the Golden Schmoes, bro. They make their own ruls. They
fucking
do what they want over at the Golden Schmoes Awards.
yeah. I think I might be thinking too deep into my Golden Schmoes awards.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking.
The Golden Schmoes. Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of like doing the award show stuff for
No, I
movies like
love that,
Old
and
School.
and doing the like sillier ones, like an MTV Movie Award, is always much funnier because the awards are so much sillier. Because it's like it'll be like Best Kiss Under Rain. Like, here are your award nominees. It's
Yeah,
like what? Like,
dude,
what is
I
this?
still think we should do an MTV Movie Awards podcast. That's what I think. Like, like where we go through year by year the MTV Movie Awards and just tell you everything you need to know about it.
Need to know about it. Let us know down in the comments below, people. Do you want to hear it or not?
but but no, so like I don't know, it's just interesting because I think it puts it into a better context too. Like I wasn't even thinking about School of Rock being a contemporary to this movie, but it totally is, you know.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on to Todd Phillips. I'm not going to do any of the other actors.
Our main event. Well, all those actors
Thought
are going to
about
show
Luke
up.
Wilson, but I think he was the one of the three that I wasn't sure when they would show up next.
Yeah, but all the rest of them, like, we're going to see a handful of times going forward.
But I also might just pick a movie with Luke Wilson in it at some point for the flick you missed. There's definitely some good Luke Wilson movies out there. But so anyway, we're gonna do Todd Phillips.
Todd Phillips, step up to the plate.
As soon as I can just winnow it down to the directing, we're gonna do Todd
Oh,
Phillips.
oh boy. God, mother.
Okay, so I think
Phillips.
this one is maybe perfect for this or that because Todd Phillips is a guy who maybe if we do this in 10 years, we'll have like a really long filmography like some of the other people we've done. But right now, it's still pretty manageable. And a lot of these I think are good questions because I know a lot of these movies you like.
I think this might be one of
So-
the first guys where we've probably seen every one of them.
So
The majority.
it looks like he made a documentary in 1993
What?
called Hated, Gigi Allen and the Murder Junkies. I know you know who Gigi Allen is.
Yeah, the fucking insane punk rock musician.
And I've seen a Gigi Allen documentary from the 90s. I don't know if it was this one, and I'm pretty amazed if Todd Phillips directed the one that I saw. Like, because that movie was good. It was like really gripping. In 1998, he directs Frat House.
So
Which I
definitely.
don't
Which
know
is
what that
another
is.
documentary.
I don't think so.
Oh, it is.
don't think
1998
Frat-
documentary that explores the darker side of fraternity life and hazing.
Dude, was Todd Phillips a documentary filmmaker?
It
This is
looks like
wild.
it. Like before he switched over, it looks like it.
Wow, I wasn't even thinking about this when I picked him for IMDb deep dive. That's really hard to say.
First two credits are a fucking documentary filmmaker.
So is his third. Bittersweet Motel in 2000 is a documentary about the popular rock band Fish.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold the phone. Todd Phillips directed a documentary about fish.
Yeah, called
That's,
Bittersweet Hotel.
dude, him covering the band's summer and fall
Bittersweet Motel, sorry.
1997 tour through Europe. That's the funny. Oh my, I gotta find that now. That's the funniest fucking shit. Dude, get
I'm
out of here.
honestly, I'm surprised you haven't seen it before. You're a really
That's what
big
I'm
Fish fan,
saying.
right?
Yeah, I'm a huge fish fan. I honestly am shocked that I've never heard of that before. That's so insane.
I'm a big Fish fan too. I like salmon mostly.
I don't know, dude. Trout's pretty sick, bro.
Yeah. You ever have swordfish? Swordfish is pretty good. Um, but so yeah, so that's like kind of a stunner. His first three movies are all documentary film movies, and like I'm pretty sure I've seen that G.G. Allen one, and I remember it being like insane. Like it was like definitely interesting to watch.
A
Um,
varied career.
then I think we're gonna break into more of what I was going for when I picked Todd Phillips. Would you take Old School or the movie that he made before Old School, like the first one before it, 2000's Road Trip?
Classic comedy right there. I would still take Old School.
I would also take Old School, yeah.
I do like Road Trip though. That movie cracked me up a lot as a kid. Fucking Tom
Yeah.
Green.
Yeah, I would take Old School, but
He
yeah,
went to
I mean
Austin, Massachusetts. You mean
that
Boston? Yeah, yeah,
that is another like huge hit, right? Like Road Trip was like really popular if I remember
yeah. That was
correctly.
really popular when we were kids. Yeah, dude.
Um,
Budget 16 million. Box office 119 million dollars that made.
right, right. So yeah, I mean honestly, maybe they're not as excited with Old School. Maybe they were hoping it was another road trip. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
All
crazy,
right,
dude. That's
so
fucking filthy how good that was.
yeah, so the movie directly after Old School now.
Oh
I
yeah,
am very interested to hear your answer to this question. Do you take Old School or Starsky and Hutch?
dude.
2004 Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller vehicle.
I love that movie.
Me too.
Think I'm taking Starsky and Hutch.
I'm taking Starsky and Hutch for sure. Another appearance by Will Ferrell, by the way.
Yeah, dude. Todd Phillips also another big budget for Starsky and Hutch, 60 million. Box office, 170 million dollars that movie
Yeah.
made.
Yeah, I mean, he honestly, as we go through this, I think you could realistically say he's like one of the most bankable comedy directors like ever, you
Wow.
know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, do you take Old School or 2006's School for Scoundrels? Maybe not one of his bigger successes, if I remember
That one
correctly.
definitely not. So budget for that one, 35, only makes 23 million at the box office. This
Yeah,
one,
not a good movie.
not a good movie. You know, this movie sucks. I would take Old School.
Yeah. Still has its moments though. John Hader's in that, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes. Yes. Well, I
He-
mean, we'll eventually get to these movies at some point because we all of these movies we saw in theaters.
yeah. Um. Oh, so do you want to do this now?
And keep going.
Okay. Do you take Old School or 2009's The Hangover?
Old School. You know, I like The Hangover, but I've
I do
never
not
been
like that.
like I like the first one. I think the first one's got like plenty of stuff that I laugh at, but I'm not a huge fan of that franchise whatsoever.
Yeah.
I Old School all day.
It loses the charm. Like I can see how you could compare it to Old School, but I think it loses the charm of Old School for me.
I could see
I'm
this one.
not an Old School.
This one though, Hangover, his biggest hit yet, $35 million budget, made 470 million at the
Right.
box.
Dude, it's like one it's a huge smash hit. Yeah, it's like one of the most successful comedies of all time. That's why they make three of them. Like, because all three of them, I think, do pretty well too. All right. So, do you take Old School, or I don't know if you've even seen this 2010's Due Date?
Oh, I have seen it, and I hate that movie.
Yeah, I will take Old
Not
School.
not a fan of that at all. Old School all the way. Although it's still a box office success. That movie had a budget of 65 and did 211 at the box office.
Jesus, yeah, he's
So this
killing
guy's
it.
he's fucking bankable.
I mean, Zach Galifianakis was a huge star after The Hangover too, and he's in
Yeah.
Due Date if I remember
And
correctly, right?
this is also like peak Robert Downey Jr. back on the uptick.
Oh yeah, dude, RDJ's in that movie.
Yeah.
And then in 2011 and 2013, he comes out with Hangover Part 2, Hangover Part 3. I haven't seen either of them because I didn't really like the first one.
Yeah, I've seen both of them. They both are not great at all. So I would take Old School over both of them. But still
Yeah.
huge movies. Hangover 2, $80 million budget, does 586 million. And then the Hangover 3 is where they kind of like you could
Dips,
tell they're
right?
done.
Hangover 2 is kind of the peak.
Yeah, Hangover 2 is the peak because now I don't know what they were doing here. Hangover 3, the budget's 103 million and they only take in 362.
I'll tell you what they're doing there. They're paying actors a lot of money, is what
Yeah.
they're doing there.
Yeah, because at this point, Bradley Cooper is a fucking huge star.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like they've already cashed, like the studio's already cashed in on part one and part two. Like if you're making a third one, everybody's getting paid. You know what I mean? Like there's no
Yeah.
way that.
It's just crazy how much those budgets ballooned from 35 to 80 to over 100 million.
I would bet. I mean, well, they're also like, I know the second one. Don't they? Didn't they film it like in Thailand? Like,
Yeah,
wasn't
I'm pretty sure.
like it's like so you're shooting on location a lot. Like it's like a whole thing, you know.
Yeah, they really do a lot. But the
Um,
third one, they go back to fucking Vegas, I'm pretty sure. Like the third one's insane to me because it's like in what world, even if you do have these huge stars and everything, do you want to be spending $100 million to make a comedy movie? Like that's absurd.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it still makes its budget back too. Like, it's not necessarily a total failure.
Yeah, it's
Like,
not a total
they're
failure,
definitely
but you
not
could
happy with
tell.
386, but it's still like I think they probably still did well on that. You know.
Yeah, you could tell the luster, the sheen is wearing off.
So then, moving on though, there's a couple of more movies here. There's only two left, and
Okay,
two left, and then there's one upcoming that I do
one
want to talk
upcoming.
about too.
Okay,
So do you take Old School or 2016's War Dogs?
so this is actually the only Todd Phillips movie that I haven't seen.
I like War Dogs. I will take that movie. It's a pretty good
Interesting.
movie.
It looked good. I just never got a chance to when it came out, and then it's just slipped through the cracks ever since then.
Yeah, War Dogs starring the ever enigmatic Miles Teller, who I can never tell if I like or dislike. Like sometimes I like him, and then I see a movie and I'm like, wait, do I like Miles Teller? I feel like I don't like him. Like,
So you back on the bandwagon after Maverick?
yes, that's the latest roller coaster. Is that he was in Top Gun Maverick with that crazy mustache, and he was great. Like, um, so yeah, I don't know. Like he's an interesting one. But no, I like War Dogs. Jonah Hill's good in that movie. It's definitely worth a watch.
Definitely another one of
Um,
his lesser efforts, though, at least box office wise, because this has a $50 million budget, only takes in 86.2.
yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Especially like Miles Teller is like a pretty big name at this point, right? Like
Yes.
2016. That's after Whiplash, I want to say.
Yes. And also, I mean, Jonah Hill also at this time, like he's already been nominated and in Wolf of Wall Street at this point. So like
Yeah,
he's
totally.
definitely a much bigger actor than he was like do when he was doing like super bad comedies and everything like
Yeah.
that.
What I'll say, it probably helped that I saw that movie like a long time after it had come out because I wasn't like super hyped for it, but I could see if people were hyped for it like in 2016 because of who was in it. If they saw it and were kind of like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
2019, I have not seen this movie, but I believe I will be watching it pretty soon. Do you take Old School or Joker?
No, I would give it to Joker. Joker is a good movie, even if it is wearing its you know references on its sleeve and like just remaking Martin Scorsese movies.
Yeah,
It
I mean
is
it is kind of like it's basically just Taxi Driver, right? I've never seen
yeah,
it, but it seems
it's
like exactly like Taxi Driver, just
it's
with a very
pretty
different
much
ending.
yeah, it's pretty much a mixture of Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy,
That
which I mean
makes
like
sense. Yeah.
isn't the worst thing to do, I guess. Like I mean it's definitely effective. Like I think it's a decent movie. I'm curious to see how you'll enjoy it because you've never seen it. So watching it now when it's so far removed from like all of the shit that was going on when it first came out. Because I think this movie left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth because like in the months leading up to it coming out, they were going through the whole thing about, like people boycotting them even playing the movie in theaters because they said it was going to like give rise to a bunch of violent attacks by like people that like
Yeah,
associate with the Joker and then
yeah,
like
the Chuds,
and,
dude. The Chuds were
yeah,
gonna
the
rise up.
Chuds. Yeah, they were
The
like, dude, the
Chuds.
Chuds are gonna go fucking nuts and like they're gonna attack like the theaters and stuff. And then like the movie came out and you go and see it and you're like, this is what fucking you were saying was gonna rile the Chuds up. Like this is such a calm movie for the most
Yeah,
part. Like there is one scene that has like a big explosion of violence, but it's no different than anything you've seen in any other fucking violent R-rated movie. Like it was so insane that like all that hoopla was around it. So like you're watching the movie and I'm like, this is it. This is what they were complaining about.
yeah. I remember being pretty exhausted with all the talk about it by the time it came out. I remember being pretty exhausted by all of that. So
Yeah.
I that's part of the reason I didn't see it when it came out. And I think that with the benefit of some time, I think I would like see this movie and I would really enjoy it because I have a feeling based on who made it that it's like very like a very funny dark comedy. That's my guess. It's like if I watch it now, I'll think it's hilarious.
Definitely want to rewatch it again because I only watched it the one time in theaters, and especially with the sequel coming out soon, I definitely want to watch this one again. And it's his biggest hit by a fucking long shot. This movie
Yeah, I mean,
budgeted
didn't it make
55.
$1 billion?
Yeah, budgeted 55, it made 1.079 billion. So
Yeah.
Todd Phillips, director of movies like Road Trip and Old School, is in
Yeah.
the $1 billion club.
Joins such esteemed filmmakers as Guy Ritchie and John Favreau.
Which is so insane that that movie made that much money. That's fucking crazy. It was the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time until just recently with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out.
Right, Deadpool like just passed it, right?
Yeah,
Like
I think that
probably
yeah,
this past week.
yeah, I think Deadpool like yeah, just passed it just recently. So
So
it's crazy.
I think this is gonna bring me now to the upcoming movie, which I think is pretty obvious based on the movie we were just talking about. Are you excited for Joker Foley Do? I hope I said that right.
Yeah, it sounds we'll go with that. That sounds correct.
Yeah,
Um, Not really. Like I'm gonna see it and everything, but I'm not like sitting here like, damn man, I can't wait for that to come out.
okay.
Like there's no like big, huge excitement for me as it is for other movies like coming out for the fall. So for me, it's just one of those movies where it's like, oh yeah, of course they're gonna make another Joker. It made $1 billion. Like, yeah, I'm gonna see it, like, of course, but like it's not like I'm sitting here like, damn man, I wish this was coming out tomorrow.
Dude, I have to tell you, I am
Yeah.
the exact opposite.
Really?
I am so
Really?
intrigued by this movie.
Why? Because
Um,
like they've like said that it's gonna be like a musical.
yeah, well, not because they said it's gonna be a musical, because it is a musical.
Well,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's like, I just like I can't even imagine, what that's gonna be like, and I feel like Lady Gaga is like such a perfect choice, like for Harley Quinn. Um, I like in a way like I never would have thought of it, but as soon as they said it, I was like, oh my god, that's like actually really smart, especially if they're singing and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of those ones where it's like as far as sequels go, like when you have to find a way to make yourself stand out, this is definitely one of the more interesting ways to do it. Because it's like, yeah, our first one is like more like a psychological, drama study on the character of Joker. And it's like, all right, well, how do we differentiate that when we do a sequel so we're not just redoing the same thing? Or like, I got it. Like, he's like a descent into madness and we're going to make it a musical. And it's
Right. Like I
yeah,
think this
definitely.
movie is gonna be one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. And you know how I love weird movies. You know
You
what I
do,
mean?
yeah,
Like
you do love your weird, you do love
Bum
your
is
weird
Afraid
movies.
is still my favorite theater experience from last year. Like,
All right.
so
That's
no,
slipping.
well,
You're
look,
not
I'm
pulling me
entitled
back
to
into
that
that
though.
one.
I like weird movies, you know.
You are, no, you are very entitled. Yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm sure it'll be good, but I wasn't like, I'm not losing sleep over waiting for it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely like dying to see it, and that's partially why I said I'm gonna see Joker soon because I'm probably gonna watch that before I go see it.
Before you see that, yeah, definitely should see the first one before diving into this one.
Like, I have pinpointed the sequel to Joker as the movie that I'm gonna not watch any more Joker movies after. Like, this is gonna be the one where I'm gonna be like,
It's
why
gonna
would
be
they
the
ever make
one, or
another
like,
one?
ah,
This was
that's it.
perfect.
This is
Like,
the best way to do it. We don't need any more. Of this.
that's how I think. So like I'm setting myself up here. It could be a big disappointment. We'll see.
You're really hyping yourself up there. I'm not. It's nice. Getting yourself all
But
hyped
yeah,
up.
and I think with that, I think IMDb deep dive is concluded.
That is quite a varied career. A documentary filmmaker turned R-rated comedy expert turned ginormous superhero box office sensation. That is quite,
Yeah, to $1 billion
yeah,
director.
that is quite a career. Excellent work, Todd Phillips, and we look forward to catching Joker Foley Ado come October when
I
you drop
can't
that
wait.
one on our silver screens. But all right, Jim, let's turn the page and let us dive into our star ratings.
I'm Roger Ebert. Been a scene from the best film of the decade. This is a great film.
Try great film, Raj. All right, Jim, let's hear it.
I don't really have much more to say about it. I'm just gonna give it a 4 out of 5.
Nice, Jim. Man, another week. We are just simpatico because I am also going to give this bad boy a 4-star. Just great comedy that really just created a whole new generation of comedy movies that are to come. So this movie again and again continues to be one of the funnier ones that I'm so happy that we revisited and it held up. Like so happy to see this one has held up. So combining our fours, we're giving this bad boy an 8. So let's see where it joins in this battle of our other 8 movies here. So Jim, do you take Old School or do you take Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets?
Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah, it's an easy battle this week. I'm also going to take Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, is that
That's
the only other 8?
No, we had a bunch of 8s. Chamber of Secrets is an 8. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is also at an 8. Signs is at an 8. And then sitting at the top of the 8s is A Knight's Tale.
Oh, I see what you're saying though. It was an easy battle because Old School didn't climb at all.
Yeah, easy battle because it wasn't getting over
You
Chamber of
put
Secrets.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days ahead of Harry Potter and Chamber of Secrets.
Yes, we did, Jim.
Wait, what was I thinking?
You're thinking that we love romantic comedies. That's what you're
I
thinking.
mean, that's true. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is pretty good.
We love our romantic comedies. But all right, so Old School is going to settle in the number 12 position, just behind Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets and just ahead of The Lost Worlds, 7.5. And that's a good spot right there. I think that's the highest a straight comedy movie has climbed right there. That's sitting pretty ahead of Super Troopers and ahead of Scary Movie.
Yeah.
That's good. Hopefully, as we continue on, we're going to get a lot more great comedies, especially out of these guys. And we don't get.
It's because it's got heart, man. It's got
Yeah,
heart.
it does.
It's got that
heart,
like
man.
you're talking about Judd Apatow. Like it's definitely got some of that Judd Apatow underpinning
some
to it.
of that Judd Apatow heart to it. There you go. Put it on the board. Jim, I'm surprised we didn't get mentioned at all in the box office tonight. So we finally got a chance to take some guesses again as to what our next movie is going to be.
Okay.
We're still staying in the comedy realm, and it stars somebody who was a famous stand-up comedian before they turned to movies.
Oh, I think I know what it is.
Oh, what is it?
Famous stand-up comedian that turned to movies. It's got to be like early 2000s. I think it's probably Chris Rock.
Ooh, okay.
Am I right?
Yes, it is Chris Rock.
And then I did see this movie in the box office as we were going through it, but I did not call it out. And that's also probably why I guess Chris Rock. Head of State?
That is correct. Yeah,
Dude, so good. I
we're
love that
diving
movie.
into the Chris Rock comedy Head of State. And this is why I love us doing this, because like when else were we ever gonna rewatch Head of State? Like
I don't know. Probably never.
exactly. I think I watched this movie like once in theaters, maybe like one more time after that in high school, and I don't think I've touched it in years since. So it's going to be so funny to redive into this movie and see if this one will
Honestly,
join the leagues of old school as holding up in the comedy realm.
this is the kind of movie that makes me wish I had like more physical media. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because like when is this ever going to be on streaming again? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, this is one that feels like it could, like, especially if everything goes to that the streaming age like it is, that just ends up getting like lost to time because no one picks it up or puts it anywhere.
yeah, let me see if it's streaming anywhere right
Yeah,
now.
where is it? Yeah, where could Head of State be streaming? Or are you busting out the
Oh,
luxurious? Oh,
okay. It's in a bunch of places.
oh, really? All
It's on
right.
Tubi. It looks like
Tubi.
it's on Amazon Prime Video and
Okay.
Paramount Plus.
Oh, all right. So you got some spots there.
So I was dead wrong. It's well represented on streaming.
The question
Still
is
though,
how
I
many
have
people
a
are
Paramount
tuning
Plus
in?
subscription, and I don't think I've ever seen like Head of State like recommended to me. You know
That's
what
what
I
I'm
mean?
saying. Like it's probably just like hidden in the databases, like the deep data of like Paramount Plus.
Yeah, but no. Either way, I'm excited to watch this. I remember I really liked this back in the day.
Yeah, this is gonna be a fun one to dive into because I remember so little about that movie. So it's gonna be fun to dive into that one and check that one out again. Do you have any recommendations for the people out there before we sign off tonight, Jim?
No, not really. I've been still watching a lot of Murder She Wrote. So still watch Murder She Wrote. Each season has gotten better and
Oh,
better.
oh my
I
god.
just watched an episode where Jessica Fletcher solved a murder while she was laid up in bed, like with a bad leg.
Oh my god.
It was just like I still don't know. She was like sending people on errands, and she pieced the whole thing together, just like laying down. It was amazing.
It is hilarious.
What about you? What are you watching these days?
So I've been trying to go through my back catalog in watching all of the Academy Award Best Picture winners that I had never seen.
Okay.
So I've been filtering through that. So the last one I just watched, a movie that has somehow slipped through the cracks for way too long, is I watched for the first time On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando.
Oh, that movie's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, dude.
That's the one when they're in like the Union, right?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
mafia.
It's like
Yeah, that
yeah,
movie's great.
yeah, that's like the longshoreman, and he's working for like the mob boss that like took over it, and he's like
Dude,
gotta help. It's so goddamn good.
there's
Uh,
two scenes in that movie that are like so fucking spectacular. The one when all the Union guys are like staring down into like I guess it's like a pit. I don't know what the fuck it is.
yeah,
And the
and
priest is there like
yeah,
trying to like get them all to man up and like
yeah,
they're all like throwing shit at him and the mafia guys are there. That
amazing,
scene and then
amazing.
this scene when Marlon Brando fights the dude at the end is nuts. Like is so nuts.
It's such a good movie. It's absolutely just fantastic, and I just love the way that 50s movies were just done. Like it's so just stripped down, but still finds a way to just create these interesting movements with the camera, and the stories are always so tight. Like
Yeah.
they're freaking phenomenal. And my
I mean, dude,
recommendation to people out there would always be to watch more old cinema because
yeah.
there's just so much good stuff out there from the 50s and the 60s. It's phenomenal.
I would take the fight scene at the end of that movie over any fight scene in any superhero movie, like 10 times out of 10.
Oh, absolutely. Because like by the time they
And,
get
like,
to it,
you
like
talk
it's
about stripped down, man. Like it's so like that's the best part about it is that it's stripped down. You know.
yeah, and there's just so much like weight, power behind it, like because you've just been following along. Like it builds itself up to this crescendo so perfectly that you're so invested by the time they finally throw hands. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's my recommendation is watch more old cinema because it's fantastic. So that's my journey right now is catching all the best picture winners that I missed.
Totally.
Yeah, so it was a good time. So we turn it now over to you people out there. Let us know down below your thoughts on old school. If we should start our MTV Movie Award podcast now, how excited you'd be for that. And then go out there and do due
Or
diligence.
alternatively, the Teen Choice Awards.
Or the Teen Choice Awards. That's what you got out there. Those are your selections. Choose wisely. Don't think of it as the red pill or the blue pill. Think of it as the MTV Movie Awards and the Teen Choice Awards. Those are your selections. And make sure you tune back here next week when we dive into the Chris Rock classic that is Head of State. And as always, we'll see you at the movies.